Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. We today are having one of our Myth Warriors shows, and of course our Myth Warriors series is where we are proactive and action-oriented. We get out there in life and we take steps to help ensure that we are meeting and surpassing our goals. So what we're doing, of course, in this series is looking at concepts, ideas, and challenging them. Are they myths? Are they lies? Are they falsehoods, exaggerations, hyperbole? Or are they accurate? Are they things that we might want to accept or base decisions on? So in our Myth Warriors series today, we have a fascinating episode. So our episode full topic is, you wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. You would not worry so much about what you think others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. Now, one of the reasons I make the assertion that this is fascinating for a show, and this is a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who was one of the first ladies in the United States of America, the longest serving. Her husband had the longest serving time in office as president. And the exact quote, of course, is, you wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. So much of the challenges, issues, concerns, fear, apprehension, negative outcomes that community members share with me, and that I certainly work with people in my other professional services as an attorney, as a business consultant, at times as an educator. It's so driven by this imaginary idea of what individual people think other people think of them. And I sort of laugh a little bit because it's silly, right? Like, first of all, and I mentioned this in the show notes, how do you know what other people are thinking? Now, I know some people are saying, well, of course I know what other people are thinking. I'm a mind reader. I have special skills. Okay, excluding someone who either believes that to be the truth, or maybe they're that rare person who's established they do have extrasensory perception, or the ability to be mind readers. The rest of us don't know what other people are thinking. All we can do is read behavioral cues, facial expression, eye contact, body language, tone of voice, and try to determine what we think people are thinking. But we don't know what they're thinking. And the exciting thing about this is there's so many conclusions that people draw that are negative based on what they think other people think about them. And my assertion here at the outset of the show is, you don't know what people are thinking, and you certainly don't know what people think about you. And even if what your suspicion is that people think about you is accurate, people don't think about you that much at all because they're thinking about themselves. And finally, who cares what other people think of you? Now, some of this, of course, these sound like huge cliches, right? We all know as young people, you hear, as a young person, well, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And this whole idea is sort of going up through childhood and adolescent development. We're going through our formative years. We all have our own, experiences and specific time period and cultural issues that impacted our development, but we do have that experience of being in a community with people that are our same age, in a school or other social setting, and other kids can make us feel awesome or make us feel awful. And there's certainly that period where we begin to see ourselves as individuals. We begin to understand that other people are individuals. They also have the same type of feelings that we do. We begin to understand that our behavior can impact other people. This is all part of our developmental process. And I mentioned in the show notes, it's something that's normal. We all, somewhat share this journey, although we may have had different types of specific issues. Maybe if we were taller than the other people our age, we would have been teased for being too tall. If we were too short, if we were too, whatever. That specifics of what the issues might have been would have changed, but this whole developmental experience of learning, about who we are and how our actions impact other people, that's just part of developing into an adolescent and then into an adult. So we should be thinking and working through, what do other people think about me, as a young person at 6 years old. And even, at 16, it's a different type of process at that point, but it's healthy, and it's part of maturing to work through that. What do other people think of me, especially as a teenager, right? Am I well received by my peers? Am I popular? Am I not popular? So this is just sort of a universal experience. Of course, there's different cultural nuances to it, but it's normal. What I'm talking about, though, and the reason that we picked this as a potential Myth Warriors episode is adults. So I'm not talking about a 6-year-old, a 16-year-old. I'm talking about a 46-year-old or a 66-year-old or a 26-year-old. And we're far beyond our sort of developmental period, and yet we verbalize. Like I said, I've had countless people share with me at seminars, programs, keynotes, when I'm doing on-site corporate education programs. People share with me these perceptions of what they think other people think of them, and they make decisions on it. So if they think other people, quote, don't like them, then they make a whole bunch of decisions based on that. And in fact, and I've done so many programs and will continue to do, there are people in management, supervisory, and even leadership roles who suffer from this same affliction. Who will say, well, I want my team members, to really, I want them to love me, not just like me. I want them to, believe in me, and they get so obsessed with this perception of what they think other people think of them that it skews their ability to make healthy choices and good decisions for their business or organization. Certainly, we see this in our lives outside of work. My best analogy I use a lot outside of work when we talk about leadership, management. We're often talking about family units, right? The family. So you've got some sort of person who's an adult legally, who's in charge, or who's part of a team, right? That's in charge of the minors in the household, and that's all the things that adults have to legally be able to do, right? Drive, procure legal employment, obtain funds to pay for bills, sign contracts, get a lease, buy a place to live. I mean, there's a lot that the adults have to do, right, as managers and leaders of this family. But I have worked with that manager, leader in the family who says, oh, I want my kids to like me and be my friend. I even had one client, I've mentioned this in other programs over the years because it stuck with me, right? So I was in my law office many years ago as an attorney, and had a client, and the client was dealing with their teenage child who had been arrested for using illegal drugs. And the adult parent was saying to me, the father was saying, I never wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a friend. And he started to explain how, in his interpretation, basically what that meant was he used the same illegal drug with his child that his child had recently been arrested for. And so he sort of is trying to explain to me, hey, yeah, I want him to like me, right? I'm so obsessed with what I think he thinks of me, my teenage child. I want him to be my friend, so I will use drugs with him and abuse alcohol. Party, I think was the term the father used. And he couldn't understand why he was having all these problems with his child being arrested, not doing well in school, not, quote, listening to him. And it seems so simple. One of the things that this specific topic, when we're talking about adolescence, I recently, just very recently, was out to lunch with some people socially, and they have children that are late adolescent and early 20s, and they were sort of talking about what their children were doing and their activities and their children's friends. And it's interesting because I suspect that if I were to go talk to their children, that their children would not have anywhere near as much investment in their parents' friends and their parents' social activities as the parent does in the child. And in fact, now that I think about it, I've had more than one of these discussions recently, and it's exactly our topic, right? Right? You wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. So here we've got these parents just sort of, they're naming all their kids' friends, and they're sharing all these, experiences and journeys that their children are doing, socially, and all their activities. And again, many of these were children who are legally adults. And I strongly suspect, and in fact I have some anecdotal experience where when I talk to those, legally adult children, they have no investment in their parents' lives that has parity. In other words, the adult child is not at all thinking about the parent as much as the parent is thinking about them, which is part of people would argue, well, that's healthy, right? At some level, of course. But at some level, the parent has to begin to rebalance that relationship as the child's through their 20s and 30s and hopefully 40s and 50s, so that the child is an independent, autonomous person, and that the parent has their own lives and isn't trying to live through vicariously someone else's life, which we've done programs on. And especially that same situation happens at work, right, where the supervisor, manager, leader is trying to vicariously live through their team members' lives. The reality, though, is the other people are not thinking of us as much as we think they are. And in the show notes, I posed the question, what do other people really think of me? They don't. And sometimes when I conduct educational programs or seminars or keynotes about these topics, people get really upset with me. And they'll, and they say, well, that's not true. I know that they think about me as much as I think about them. Okay, maybe they do. I'm not in their heads. I don't know what they're thinking. But my argument is neither do you. Now, we all hope that other people think of us. That's part of the struggle. And, in a world with billions of people, how do we define ourselves in a way that we feel healthy and have a self-image and confidence that allows us to be joyful and to feel that we're of service and our lives have meaning? At the same time, though, we want to be careful that we're not blurring the lines of what is probably the most likely outcome. It's narcissistic. We begin to have a distorted view of ourselves when we start to think that other people just think about us all the time. And I don't care, if you're living in a very small town where people, do know more of what's going on in the community just because there's less people, and or you live in a big, huge, city where there's millions and millions of people. My argument to you is the same, that they're not thinking of you as much as you think they are. And the interesting thing about this quote, of course, coming from a very prominent person during her lifetime in the United States and around the world. So here's someone who you would think, if someone's going to be a narcissist, right, somebody that has an unhealthy sense of how much other people think of us, right? The narcissist is so in love with themselves, right? Narcissus. I'm looking at my view in the reflection of the water so much that I fall into the water and drown, right? I'm so in love with myself. The idea, though, that if there's someone who's going to think that, wouldn't it be somebody who's, married to the first, married to the president of a nation, the leader of a nation? Is it somebody who, in her own right, then was very famous during her husband's life, and certainly after her husband passed away, went out around the world and was known in so many areas in women's rights and equality in many different areas, and award-winning. And so here's somebody you would think, well, yeah, maybe they do think everybody's thinking about them, right? Look at them. They're famous. People know who they are, right? They've been out around the world. Everybody knows who they are. But this person is the one who's saying, don't worry about it. They're not thinking of you. And that's coming from somebody who is, at the time and certainly throughout her life in so many different ways, was famous and well-known and powerful. So I think that leads credence to the idea that this might be credible. They're not thinking of us that much. Yes, even if you are famous or you're on television or in movies, even if you're somebody who people literally make a living off of talking about the clothes you wear and where you went on holiday and what you ate at a meal, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's about you. It's just often what people are doing when they talk about something that's related to you, they're using that as a reflection for themselves. So someone's talking about fashion, and they may be talking about even what you're wearing, but it's not a reflection of you. They don't really care about you necessarily. It's about them. Maybe there's someone that's trying to sell their own fashion clothing. Maybe there's somebody, if you're in a work office and someone, mentions your clothing and you think they're making a negative comment about it. It's often about them. It might be that they wish they had that outfit. Maybe they saw it and they wanted to buy it, but they couldn't afford it, or they didn't have it in their size, or whatever. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's somebody who spent all of their money and resources on their clothes, and they're just worried all the time that people don't know how much they've spent, and people don't respect them for all the work they put into what their appearance is, and so they make a nasty comment. And again, it's about them. Remember, they're not saying and doing whatever it is about you, thinking about you, your feelings, your dreams, your aspirations, your fears, your hopes. What they're doing is talking about themselves. Now, they may use you as a reference point at times, but again, it's not about you, it's about them. How does it relate to them and their lives? What does it mean? And certainly we see this, and I think, again, why this might be credible, and my assertion in this episode is I think this is actually not a myth, but a credible argument. That, we have a whole international, global gossip industry, which has existed for, all of, I'm sure, humanity. But now we've got technology where I can, use my smartphone and look and see what people are gossiping about, movie stars in Mumbai or in Nigeria or anywhere in the States or, in Argentina. I can look and see what people are gossiping and making fun of anywhere in the world right now, instantaneously. So that's a little bit different, the transmission of the information. But the information, the whole idea, right, Schadenfreude, the whole idea that I feel good when I see that someone else, something bad happened to them, right? That's not me worrying about them or thinking about them or being concerned. It's me gossiping about them. Often, people who are famous or celebrities or, actors or models or whatever, people gossip about them. But mostly it's waiting for them to something bad to happen. And then the person can think, well, maybe they're, very tall and handsome or beautiful or famous or whatever. But see, look what happened to them. That just shows me I'm lucky I'm not them. I would hate that to happen. Or just that idea of, it's again a reflection of the individual. It goes back to one of the core assertions of this concept, which I'm arguing is not a myth. Other people are not thinking of us. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about, are they hungry? Do they have to go to the bathroom? What are they going to do tomorrow night? What's on, what movie are they going to watch later? They didn't like what they ate yesterday. Their foot hurts. They're thinking about themselves. And I've done other programs about some of the research that shows that we think about 70,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. What are we thinking about? Well, all kinds of things. A lot of these are just repetitive thoughts, right? I need to scratch my nose. It itches. Again, I'm hungry. Things of this nature. The reality is that how much time do you think people have available and all of the things they think about constantly to sit around and think about you? First of all, it's not a lot of time. And secondly, why would you be the forefront of their mind? Now, I understand if it's, your spouse or, the closest person in the world to you, but you think all of your coworkers are thinking about you? You think the people, that you exercise with at your exercise group are thinking about you all the time? You think your adult children or the people you went to school with 20 years ago, are thinking about you all the time? I mean, that's where we begin. It's looking like we're being a narcissist. No, they're not. It's not even logical. First of all, they have to think about themselves. We all have to do that. You do. I do. We have to think about our immediate issues, right? I need to eat. I need to, have a shower or take a bath. I need to groom myself. Then if you have responsibilities, either, minor children or people with special needs or senior family and friends, if you have animals that you're responsible for that you have to feed and take care of. There's a lot going on. So the idea that, that we're going to be able to sit around and think about the person that we work with or somebody that we went to school with or this other person that we had lunch with 2 weeks ago and we're sitting around thinking about them all the time, it's not even logical. And that, I think, is the core part of what this assertion was that Eleanor Roosevelt was trying to share with people. You're worried about things that that don't even exist. This is just your imagination of what you think other people think of you. Which, when you work through that, right, it's really just your own reflection of yourself. I shared in the show notes, let's say you ask your friend, how do I look in this dress? How do I look in this dress, right? Now, come on. If somebody's really your friend, right, because someone who cares about me, right, then what's the test to see if they're my friend? Okay, if I'm happy, they're happy. My happiness is their joy. So if they were really my friend or someone who liked or loved or cared about me, then they're not going to say to me anything that's going to be solely designed to cause me pain. So they're not going to say to me, oh, it's a pretty print for somebody 20 years younger, or yeah, that would be great if you were a little bit, more full-figured, not on your skinny body, or whatever. They're not going to say something that's going to solely be designed to cause me pain if they're really my friend or someone who cares about me. So that's part one, and we do a lot of programs on that. What's that test, again, to find out? The reality, though, is if they are my friend, they're somebody who cares about me or likes or loves me, then they're going to want to try to balance helping me because they want me to go out looking what they think might be the most flattering and feel good about myself, but they also want to make sure that their overarching goal is my happiness, right? So they're often going to sort of temper whatever they're going to say with sort of telling me what I want to hear. And I asked in the show notes, what incentive do they have to tell you anything other than what you want to hear? And if they're your friend or loved one, they care about you, they have no incentive. Right? They're not going to hurt you. Their whole purpose in life is for your joy. So, I mean, come on. Now, the reality is, and I've done so many programs and keynotes and resources because this is just the core over and over again. This obsession almost with what I think other people think of me, and it's destructive because A, I don't know what they think, but B, even if I think I know. Like, let's say you're somebody and you're like, I do know what they think. I'm someone that people write, down on the internet or in media and write down what they think about what I look like. Okay, great. You still don't know what they think of you. You just know what they said they think of you, right? And there's so many issues with peer pressure, with obedience, that impact what people say and do. So my argument would be that you are invested in yourself. You are focused on your own goals, healthy choices, and positive outcomes. Since you have not a clue what other people really think about you, you can't figure it out, all you can do is go off of what they tell you they think of you, which might be what they really think, and it might be a complete lie. You don't know. If you invest a second of your life in this sort of endless process of guessing and imaginary outcomes, you have wasted time and stolen it from yourself. You don't know what they think of you, so stop. What do I mean? Stop what? Stop thinking about it. Now, you should think about what you think about yourself. Again, not in a narcissistic way, but hey, does this fit well? Can I afford this dress? Am I getting this because I like it, it makes me happy, or am I getting it again because I think other people will be impressed? This gets that whole thing where somebody, whether they're 20 years old or 80 years old, right, they want to go and say to some person in their professional or social group, look, I have such and such brand name, outfit or watch or car or whatever, because you're hoping that other people will hear the brand name and think, oh, that's a fancy, awesome brand name that represents, exclusivity and I don't know, wealth. So if that person has that brand name, that must mean I attach those attributes to them. I mean, that's marketing, right? That's what companies do. I hope many of my organizations, right, do this. They want you to have an idea and a brand of them. That's what they spend all their money and time on. They want you to think about them. That's their entire dream, right? And for people who are their own business brand, a lot of time entertainers, athletes, politicians, executives, there's that old myth, right? There's no bad gossip, right? All gossip's good just because they're talking about you. And the idea is the worst thing ever is they quit talking about you, which again gives more credence to this idea that they're not whoever they are in your world, they're not really thinking about you that much because they're thinking about themselves and all their regular stuff they have to do. And then if they have their own life, they have to take care of other people or animals or, the environment or whatever it is they're working on. Like, they have stuff. And on top of that, then there's only a little bit for other people. And then they're going to take that time and start in the sort of concentric circles in life. It'll be the people closest to them, and then it'll be people, further and further out. It doesn't mean that they're thinking bad things at all. They might just not be thinking of you except for that time that they saw you in the office or that time you guys went to lunch a few months ago. It's not a bad thing. You're not thinking about them all the time either. And that's a part of this of being honest. You shouldn't be. First of all, you don't have the time to think about every single person that you've either met in your entire life or read about constantly because there's not enough time in the day to get your regular thoughts in for just your own maintenance of your person, then your own life. I have to pay my bill. I have to run an errand. Did I get my groceries or whatever? And then on top of that, think you're going to be able to think about everybody else all the time. You just can't. There's not enough time. And it's the same parameter that everybody else faces. But this investment in worrying about what you think other people think of you, so then you dress some way or you speak some way or you behave a certain way or whatever, just think to try to become what you think other people want you to be is a totally destructive path. It's destructive. First of all, you don't have any way to actually definitively know whatever it is the ideal is that you think you're striving for. The other thing is the people that you're trying to quote, I don't know, have them think of you, I don't know, well, they can change their definition at any minute. It could have been that, hey, everybody that drives a certain type of, a motorcycle is the best. And then you go get that motorcycle, and then a few months later they tell you, well, no, those motorcycles are horrible now. Nobody's driving that. Everybody's has a different thing. And there you are looking silly because you wouldn't spend all your money on that one thing that you didn't even want, thinking that's what they wanted. And now they change the rules on you. And they can do that constantly because, A, you don't know what they think, and B, you're at their whim. If you decide you're going to let somebody else dictate who you are, then okay, you can do that. But the reason why it's so high stress and why I said it's so destructive is you never ever are able to win, right? Because you have no control. You don't even know what the rules are, and the people or the person that you're just obsessed with, what they think of you. A, they're not thinking of you that much, and if they are, obviously they're not your friend or loved one because if they were, the test is they would care about your happiness. So if they're saying something that's negative or destructive or cruel or condescending, then obviously they're not an ally. Why on earth are you now wasting time on somebody who's made it very clear that they're not invested in you in a healthy way? People do this, though. And that's why I thought this show topic was so important. I continue to observe it. I hear it. I see it. And I don't understand it. Being an individual is difficult. There's so much research on this about peer pressure and the desire to, quote, fit in. Conformity it's a very powerful thing. Obedience, adhering to authority, all of this is very powerful. And I love all of that. It's one of my favorite areas of research, and I do a lot of programs that touch on these issues because it's, of course, the core of everything from management and business and organizational change. It also touches on the entire legal system, right? I don't need a law or a legal system at all if people would just all treat each other appropriately. The question is what's appropriate and who defines it. So I'm going to encourage you. My assertion is that this is absolutely positively not a myth. It is an accurate assertion. You wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. Not a myth. They don't think of you. When they do, it typically is related to themselves. If they're one of the few people in your life who genuinely care about you, they're an ally, that means your happiness is their happiness, then you obviously can see that because their behavior reinforces your happiness and you reinforce theirs. That's your friend or loved one or family member. You need to go ahead and spend your time with those people. All this other stuff in your head that's imaginary or maybe even real. I've done many programs where people literally will say horrible, cruel things. People have said horrible things to me at work and even socially. I've been called names I didn't even think of until somebody called me the insult. And then I thought, wow, that's kind of creative. I don't internalize it. It's not about me. It's about their perception of me, perhaps. It's about maybe they do think I'm the ugliest, most horrible person in the world. That's fine. I can't do anything about that. And it's okay to be an individual. It's okay to make healthy choices, be of service, and wear what you like, and eat what you like, and work how you like. It's okay. And so what? That you sort of are a bit of a nonconformist. You're not just going along with the crowd. That's kind of awesome. And in fact, I'm going to argue it is awesome. Focus on yourself. Are you kind to yourself? Are you of service to yourself and to others? Are you joyful? Are you surpassing your goals? And are you fully experiencing your own life? Your own life. Not somebody at the office, not somebody in a gossip magazine, not some movie star, not some politician, not your long-lost relative, not the person you went to high school with. Your life, not your adult kids, not your senior relatives or parents or grandparents. Your life, you. What makes you happy? Who are you? These are the questions. So don't think about this other stuff. It is absolutely positively not a myth. They're not thinking of you. But you should be thinking of you. And there's so much work to do for all of us, individually and collectively. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, you can come to CourtneyAnderson.com for more information.